to pull the battery out of his car so he could recharge it overnight. Then he could hook the battery up the next day and use a meter to see if the electrical system was working properly. He opened the hood. He looked some more. Where was the battery? Had someone stolen it? He opened the manual. The manual said nothing about the location of the battery. He called up his friend Brian. Brian told him that he was looking in the wrong place. The battery was under the rear seat. Gerard scoffed. Nobody puts a battery under the rear seat, except Volkswagen, he told Brian. Well, it's got to be somewhere if it's not under the hood, Brian replied. Gerard went back out to the Buick and lifted up the rear seat. He found a few coins, some real old chewing gum, a paperback novel, and a watch battery, but no car battery. Enough was enough. Gerard called AAA's emergency road service. Before the tow truck driver towed the Buick to Sears, Gerard asked him if he knew where the battery was. Oh, sure, he said. It's under the hood, but you'd never know it because it's completely hidden by the big white plastic windshield washer reservoir. It was only a '93 Lincoln, but he loved it. Not a ding on it. Only 75,000 miles, even though it was 14 years old. The leather seats were like new, as was the headliner. All the bells and whistles worked, including the cruise control and the power seats and mirrors. It even got 14 miles per gallon. What was not to love? She hated it. She hated it because she thought he loved his car more than he loved her. We can't go anywhere because all you do is worry about what will happen to your car, she complained. The last time we went shopping, after an hour you stopped talking and listening to me. You had that long face. I knew what you were thinking about. What was I thinking about? He asked. You were thinking about your Lincoln. She continued. When we went out to the parking lot, you walked all around it to check for fresh dings. Then, when you saw none, you unlocked the car and got in. As usual, you didn't open the door for me because you were so busy adjusting the airflow out of the dashboard vents. I just do that to make you feel comfortable, he said. If you really want to make me feel comfortable, she said, sell this car. Aaron asked Ray if he had looked everywhere for Walt's gift. Had he called up the wedding site to see if anything had been left behind? Ray said that he had looked everywhere and made a lot of calls that were fruitless. Ray didn't know what to do. If he sent Walt and Mary a thank you note for a gift they hadn't given, they would be insulted. If he didn't send them a thank you note for a gift they had given, they would be insulted. What would you do? Ray asked. Aaron said he would call Walt up and tell him the problem. You can't go wrong with simply being honest, Aaron said. Oh, yes you can, Ray countered. Sometimes it's best to let sleeping dogs lie. But he thought about it and finally decided that honesty might be the best policy. He called Walt and told him the problem. Walt said that yes, he had given an envelope. In fact, the envelope contained $500 cash. $500? Ray asked. That's a lot of cash, Walt. Walt admitted that it was, but he had gotten a fat raise early that year, and Ray's was the only wedding he'd been to in quite a while. Ray thanked him very much and apologized sincerely for someone stealing Walt's generous gift. Walt told him that it was only money. When Ray told Aaron about Walt's gift, Aaron laughed. The only thief at the wedding was Walt. I quit playing cards with him last year because I caught him cheating, and it was only a $10 pot. I'm sure I told you about that. Yes, you did tell me, Ray said. But of course he had to send Walt a thank you note anyway. Melissa had heard about Bill. He was a womanizer. He dated one woman after another, telling one lie after another. He was a pilot, a tiger trainer, a banker, a publisher, a tycoon, an investor, an adventurer, and on and on. He laughed about how easy it was to deceive women. Dress sharp and drive a luxury car, and they would follow you anywhere. Bill could get almost any woman he wanted, and then he discarded them like so many empty water bottles. Although Bill owned a carpet cleaning business that had 5 employees, he made most of his money gambling. He went to Vegas at least 6 times a year and played at a couple of casinos in the Los Angeles area regularly. Tonight, he had invited himself to a monthly neighborhood poker game. For most of the evening, Bill was rather quiet. He hadn't said one unkind word about women, and he only briefly bragged about his poker skills. Melissa wondered if Bill had finally met a woman who had put him in his place. Meanwhile, he was winning every third hand. Melissa decided to play one last hand and then leave. She ended up with a wonderful hand, 3 nines and 2 aces. The betting was spirited, but eventually all the other players dropped out except Bill. Bill made a final raise, and Melissa called. There was almost $200 in the pot, the biggest of the evening. Melissa was mentally shopping with the money, much of it Bill's. Bill, however, also had a full house, 3 tens and 2 deuces. Bill chuckled. "The best female poker player in the world couldn't beat me, honey. What on earth were you thinking?" Edith wasn't getting any help from anyone. She had just taken the state realty exam, which was a lengthy multiple-choice exam in downtown Los Angeles. The testing room in the government building was freezing. As she hunched up shivering, she looked around and saw others feeling equally cold. Why couldn't these people let us know beforehand to bring jackets, she wondered. After getting the news that she had passed the test, she signed up with a realty company. They told her how much money she would owe them each month and wished her good luck. Other than that, they weren't much help or encouragement. They told her how to have open houses on weekends. She had to carry big signs in her car and place them in the neighborhood around the open house. The signs were not always easy to push into the ground, nor did they always stay upright. To make matters worse, one Saturday evening, she discovered that all of her signs had been stolen. Her realty company told her not to worry. They would just add the cost of replacing the signs to her monthly bill. After she had asked him many times, her husband finally accompanied her to an open house. They ended up spending 8 hours together with each other that Sunday. Only a dozen house hunters showed up all day. She tried to engage Edgar in conversation, but all he wanted to do was read the newspaper. After he helped her pick up all the signs, he told her that was the last time he was going to help her on an open house. She asked why. He said he didn't want to talk about it. Edith wondered how long her realty career was going to last. 2 bombing attempts in London failed last night. A Mercedes was parked in front of a popular nightclub before closing time. There were at least 500 patrons inside the club. The Mercedes contained 11 full gasoline cans and 7 containers of nails. Apparently, the car was to be exploded by a call from a cell phone, but someone or something goofed. The cell phone call didn't trigger the explosion. Instead, some smoke started spewing out of the car. An ambulance happened to drive by. The driver, seeing the smoke, called the police. The police arrived quickly, and a bomb expert immediately entered the car and started disarming the vehicle. A few minutes later, the police were notified about another car, also full of explosive material, parked behind the nightclub. That vehicle was also disarmed. Twice in one night, deadly explosions had failed to occur. The bad guys had lost, this time. A new prime minister had just taken over in England. He said that God was watching over London. Scotland Yard believed that terrorists were behind the bombing attempts. When one patron at the nightclub found out how close he had been to death, he said, "I'm so happy to be alive. Last night I was dancing all night near the windows next to the street, and I would have been one of the first to die. It's scary to think about. I won't be coming to this club for another week or so." Adam and Constance were very religious. Both had been raised in Catholic families, except for her Uncle Chandler, who was agnostic. All their relatives were devout Catholics. Adam's oldest brother was, in fact, a priest. Adam, as a youth, had been an altar boy and had prayed to God to become a priest. Instead, God made him a fireman. Constance had seriously thought about becoming a nun, but that was before she met Adam. Her heart fluttered at her first sight of Adam. He was taking pictures with kids at a charity event. What a big, strong man, she thought, and so good-looking. Constance took her nephew over to get his picture taken. She couldn't believe it when she saw that Adam was wearing a St. Christopher medal around his neck. "He's Catholic, too," she marveled. Not being a shy woman, Constance started up a conversation with Adam. One thing, as they say, led to another. Both sets of parents were so happy that their child had fallen in love with a Catholic. There was a huge wedding at the cathedral. Adam's brother married the two lovebirds. Everyone said it was the best wedding ever. When Adam and Constance got around to opening their gifts a few days later, Constance opened an envelope from her Uncle Chandler. In it was $100 cash. But the cash was inside a Jewish card for Happy Hanukkah. The note in the card was, "I couldn't find a wedding card that I liked. I know this is Jewish, but it really is a beautiful card, don't you think? Love and best wishes." Constance did not send her uncle a thank you note, nor did she ever talk to him again. She was unable to think about her wedding again without thinking about that card. "Why don't you ever take me out to dinner?" Ginger screamed. "All my girlfriends go out to dinner with their boyfriends at least once a week. They go to nice restaurants and they have a good time. Then they call me up the next day and brag about what a nice time they had. They make me sick. And so do you, you cheapskate." This was not the first time she had had this conversation with Barney. He replied, "How many times have I told you that I don't trust restaurant food? All you have to do is watch these specials on TV news occasionally to see what's going on in the kitchen. When you see how the cooks don't wash after using the bathroom, how they sweat into your food while it's cooking, how they touch every bite of your food with their hands, and who knows what else you don't see, then you'd agree with me." "You exaggerate," she yelled. "Not all restaurants are like that, only a few." He told her that even a few was one too many for him. "Well, one more week without going to a restaurant is going to be one too many for me, Buster," she warned. "Lester takes Heidi out 3 times a week. She has the life." Okay, Barney surrendered. He promised to take her out that Friday night to the best sushi place in town. The next evening, Ginger's best friend called. "Did you hear about Heidi? She almost died," she wailed. Heidi was still in the hospital. She had been taken to the emergency room that morning because of the bad scallops she had eaten at the most exclusive restaurant in Pasadena the night before. Zach drove over to his fiancée's place. She was in China visiting her parents. Her son Bradley hadn't gone with her. Bradley was a junior in high school. He neither liked nor disliked Zach, even though he had known Zach for 3 years. Zach was still trying to win Bradley over. He called Bradley to tell him that he was coming over. Bradley said okay. When Zach got there, he checked all of Christine's mail to see if there were any bills to pay. There were none. He asked if Bradley wanted to drive Zach's car. Bradley had a driver's permit and was always pestering his mom to let him drive her car. Bradley said all right. Zach told him not to speed, but he could drive anywhere he wanted. Bradley got on the 210 freeway and headed northwest to where it meets the 5. Zach gave Bradley a few driving tips. Don't drive next to big rigs, because you never know when they might tip over and crush you. Don't drive behind pickup trucks with loads, because you never know when something in the truck will get airborne and come flying through your windshield. On their way back, Zach suggested that they stop at the driving range. He wanted to show Bradley how to play golf. Bradley wasn't enthusiastic. He preferred his video games. But Bradley soon discovered that golf was fun. He hit a large bucket of balls. Zach told him that he had a natural swing. The next day, Bradley, for the first time ever, called Zach. He had a few blisters on his hands. Zach said that was normal. Then Bradley asked if Zach would come by next Saturday so they could take a drive and hit golf balls again. Zach said of course, with a happy feeling in his heart. Senator Earl Adams recently admitted that he had been having sex with prostitutes. He claimed, however, that he actually wasn't having sex with them. He was just talking to them. But he did admit that he wore diapers during some of those conversations. When the senator got wind that a newspaper was going to reveal his shortcomings, he called a news conference. Apparently, he figured that by confessing instead of getting caught, he would be forgiven faster. The senator announced that God would forgive him because he understands that senators need to relieve their stress somehow. In a 1998 magazine interview, his wife said that Adams was as faithful as a puppy dog. She added, however, that if she ever did catch him cheating, she would divorce him. In 1999, Adams told CNN that President Clinton should resign because of his affair with Monica. He was unfit to remain in public office after his shameful behavior. Senator Adams, however, said he would remain in office. To resign would be to let down the people who had voted for him. His wife announced that she loved him and would stand by her man. The U.S. Senate contains 100 of the most powerful people in the United States. They are elected because of their integrity, intelligence, and leadership. Yet here is a senator who regularly cheats on his wife, who doesn't realize that an escort service keeps phone records, and who dresses in baby clothes. The man is a joke, but he will have the last laugh when the good people of California re-elect him. Once a week, Neil went grocery shopping. He always made a list, but he always forgot to put one or more items on the list. This used to anger him, but now he just accepted it. "You're not as sharp as you used to be," he told himself. It was Friday, shopping day. He went to the 99-cent store. Sometimes they had a lot of fresh produce. Sometimes they didn't. He got lucky. There were fresh, packaged broccoli, celery, eggplant, and squash. Also, packages of peaches, plums, and apples. He easily had enough produce to last all week if it didn't rot first. The produce alone filled up 4 plastic bags. 4 other bags contained other items that were on Neil's list. He drove to Albertsons, which sold milk by the gallon and at cheaper prices than the 99-cent store. Interestingly, the price of milk had soared in the last month. He used to buy 2 gallons of non-fat milk for $3.59. Now he was paying $4.69. Yet the news media was silent. The same news media that reports a 2-cent increase in gasoline prices or even a 1-cent decrease. That's all over the news. Milk, he thought, just isn't sexy enough. He parked his car in the carport and opened the trunk. Somehow he managed, as usual, to put all 10 plastic bags into his hands and lug them upstairs. What a drag shopping is, he thought, and then he mentally slapped himself. If you think it's a drag now, wait till you can't drive. Wait till you can't even walk up the stairs unless you use a cane. How are you going to get your groceries then? The older you get, he told himself, the more you'd better appreciate the fact that you can still do all these boring chores and errands.